It's my pleasure to introduce Josh Bartolomie from Cofense. We're excited to have you here to talk about connecting global threat intel to human risk quantification. Take it away,
Same.
Josh.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that, Chris. So today, in the next 20, 25 minutes, we're going to talk a little bit about the marriage of the two worlds between HRM and emerging threat intelligence, cyber threat intelligence specifically. I've been doing cybersecurity for well over 25 years now. And, I've done it wrong. I've done it right. I've done in between. And, some of the big lessons that I've found is there's too many silos I've seen it throughout small and large organizations when it comes to HRM and the SecOps team or the day-to-day security incident response processes within an organization. And generally the two are kept separate, right? I mean, you have your HRM and then you have all of the fighters, so to speak. But so what we're going to go through quick is really just five quick topics, talking about some of the perception and reality of what HRM and CTI is and isn't. The distinction between who thinks what is both sides of that fence and just generalized employees. We'll actually talk about some ideas and concepts that I've actually done in practice and why it's important for amplifying your risk correlation and mitigation, really just for quantifying what that risk is and making it actually impactful within your organization. How you can evolve, your overall engagement and communication with your employee base, as well as up the chain. And then how can you really bring it all together? And then we'll have, about 5 minutes towards the end for some actual Q&A. So throughout the presentation, feel free to put Q&A, put your questions in the chat here and we'll address them as we can after. So first things first. Again, this is the kind of level set playing fields for everybody. HRM, reality versus perception. The reality is HRM helps mitigate human risk. That's the goal, and identify it. Technology helps us do that. Perception by most people is technology, especially executives or, technologists like myself even, is that technology can solve human risk. And the reality is you can't solve a people problem with technology, just like you can't solve a technology problem with people. You can absolutely mitigate it to a certain degree, but it's a Venn. There's always something on either side. The big concept here is the reality of HRM is the knowing that human errors and actions create risks. Unfortunately, there are some groups or individuals or even employees that think that we all think that employees are the risk. Bar none, they're the risk. Kind of like a zoo. We got to keep them caged in so they don't attack anybody. Risk. Reality, we also know, is that security training mitigates risk. Proper security training, contextual security training, real-time security training mitigates risk. Most employees, and I've been in this boat myself for many years, is back in my early career, right? It's just a compliance checkbox. I mean, it is a compliance checkbox, but done right, you're actually educating and informing and empowering your employees. And it's important to get that messaging across, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And again, we know employees make mistakes. And now, mind you, I'm not discounting that there are not malicious insiders. There absolutely are, but we're talking percentage-wise, 95.5, right? So the reality is most risks are introduced by careless behaviors, and that actually does increase the risk overall. It doesn't mean those careless behaviors are always malicious. I've actually done in situations where individual managers have actually kind of punitively charged, if you will, employees for just a careless mistake. It was a careless mistake and they should have been reprimanded, but it wasn't malicious in its intent. And again, we all know this. The reality is HRM, corporate-wide risk management. Unfortunately, too many people think it's just security awareness training. And so that's part of our talk here, is to really kind of enhance that profile, if you will. So now let's look at cyber threat intelligence. Now, again, I've been in this cyber field for well over 25 years now. I've built security ops centers. I've helped stand up HRM systems and teams. I've kind of run the gauntlet. So a lot of misconceptions around what threat intelligence is and isn't. So first, perceptions. I'm just going to go down the list and then I'll address the realities. Perception is CTI, cyber threat intelligence, is too specific and nuanced. It really is. However, that specificity, I can never pronounce that word, and the nuances contain a range of actual detail and context that has applicability to more than just detecting bad things happening. It helps us identify what are our risks, what's the exposure of the current threat landscape globally, as well as a variety of other different details. Real-time intelligence is just marketing, it's just hype. No, it really does exist. The trick is actually finding the organizations and the services that provide useful and contextual real-time threat intelligence. And I've found over the years of doing this, it's actually one of the reasons I came to Cofense about 6.5 years ago, is for the intelligence portion of it, because real-time intelligence on very specific things that can impact your organization are essential to actually getting ahead of that risk, to getting ahead of that problem before it starts. Intelligence is just for SOC and SecOps. No, there's a broad range of applicability. We'll talk about some of that in a little bit. Interestingly enough, I've actually heard and been in conversations where the argument was internalized threat intelligence is useless. So we don't capture any of those metrics. So specifically insofar as like security operations teams, they're not capturing specific demographics on, we'll say, phishing attacks that have been reported that they've identified as malicious. They're not capturing a run list of top targeted employees or employees by volume of reporting, things along those lines, because it's useless. There's no value. It's invaluable. I mean, why read the police blotter when your own house is getting broken into and you know what needs to be fixed? If you know what people are breaking into your house, you're going to fix the locks on your doors and your windows versus, trying to get whatever the local businesses or others are doing. It's not, could be applicable to you, but it's not always applicable to you. And perception is there's way too much threat intelligence out there. And I agree. There is way too much threat intelligence out there, but not in a bad way. This is where you need to kind of cherry pick what is useful for you, for your organization, and for the data and context that you're actually working within. Okay, now let's talk about, I keep saying contextual threat intelligence, contextual threat intelligence. Contextual means related to you and your organization specifically. Say you're in healthcare. Well, you want threat intelligence in regards to threats that are impacting the healthcare industry. Say you happen to have offices out of Ireland. You want threat intelligence relating to geopolitical events or specific attacks targeting specific geos, such as Ireland. I'm just arbitrarily using, locations here. Say we start seeing a phishing attack that's targeting a specific region or a specific organization, or that your organization is starting to receive a surge of phishing attacks that follow a really small amount of templates. So 2 or 3 different emails, but they're hitting hundreds, thousands of people. The faster you know that intelligence, the better you can respond to it and help educate your employees in the moment and from that longer term. With all of that insight, right? Because you have predictive analytics when it comes to threat intelligence, you have that real time, here's what's actually happening now out in the world. And I'm going to focus most of this on phishing threat detection, just because depending on the measure that you look at, anywhere between 70 and 95 of most known breaches are starting with a phishing email. And I'm sure all of us here are running phishing simulation programs or have, and doing security awareness training specific to phishing. So just kind of point of relevance to kind of tie us all together here. I'm going to really focus on that a bit. But if we're able to actually measure dynamically employees and know who's at risk, who's getting targeted the most, who falls into a category of people that are being targeted. Example, I can tell you Q4 of every single year, there's a surge of emails that hit HR and finance teams around the world, every company I've seen it. Because that's when open enrollment happens for benefits, obviously mostly in the US, but that's also when a lot of change happens with retirement accounts, other various elections, direct deposit changes, things like that. So there's always a surge around Q4 of every year with finance and HR related emails. That's important to know because then you can gear your security awareness training and your risk metrics and quantifications to that type of theme that you know are going to be seen. Examples of what I'm talking about and how they can provide some insights. This was a phishing attack that was seen targeting Meta business accounts, so businesses that set up Meta accounts. And the goal was to actually gain access to those Meta accounts to either further phishing attack or to infiltrate various organizations. This is very similar to what I just mentioned insofar as organizations being targeted with open enrollment, 401k updates, and other HR initiatives. I always say that there's kind of a phishing almanac. There are absolutely periods of time during a year when specific themes happen. Microsoft Office documents. Attackers are watching what we're using in our organizations, not just specifics like Microsoft documents or anything like that, but what services we're using, what SaaS software we're using. And they're more and more, especially as the AI activity starts growing, threat actors are leveraging all of that, such as actually measuring and monitoring to see if you're actually using GitHub, which is a source code repository a lot of organizations use. Are you using GitHub to manage your software that you're building and selling? All the way to targeting very specific sectors. Now, every single one of these headlines is within the last 6 months, and I've had dozens more I could have pulled in here, but they all started with a phishing email. Now, if you knew this, and say for this last one here, say you are in the oil and gas sector, and this was a very large campaign that occurred over the stretch of at least a month and a half. That's where that timely knowledge for risk, for measurement, for integrating and talking with your SecOps team. Have we seen any of these emails? And here's some intelligence we have as to what the emails look like. They say yes. Now send out training material to your employees, or at least an awareness newsletter, things along those lines. So that way they're now becoming a part of that detection grid. You're enabling them, empowering them to actually help mitigate the risk within your organization. Okay. I harp on this a lot because it's important, and too many people throw too much all at once, and it gets lost. I've done that myself. Like I said, I've done this wrong a lot of times. So first, identify what data and what telemetry fits your organization, your risk quantifications, your profiling. Every company's unique. Every organization's unique. Incorporate that enrichment data into your HRM environments. Test it out, qualify it, quantify it. Actually look at real risks, incorporate your SecOps team, have them review some of your findings, some of your quantifications. They'll be able to tell you, this is right, we see this is a risk. And roll up and roll down. It's not corporate as a whole. It's not even really a department as a whole. It could be by title. It could be by geolocation. It could be individuals. It could be teams in a department that are often more targeted than not. Example, prior company I worked for, we had a huge, we presented at a very large industry-specific conference. And our booth was fairly large in this conference, and we were actually doing recruiting right at the booth. For the following month, our HR team in that region started getting slammed with malicious phishing emails. And knowing that in the past we ran into this before, we already prepared the HR team. We've already trained them on it. We already put in other security mitigating controls in regards to PDF management and things like that. So that at that point, we were able to actually stop bad from happening, because the year prior, we did the exact same thing, weren't aware, and bad things happened. So we were able to learn from our own mistakes. Phishing simulations. Okay, I told you I kind of want to tie this all into phishing because of the overall relevancy. And we all generally have these types of programs or processes in place already. The biggest gap I see a lot with phishing simulation is the use of old phishing simulation templates. People don't think phishing evolves. It does. There's an evolution every single day. I manage Cofense's managed security team. And, we process tens of thousands of emails every single day. And there isn't a week that goes by where we don't see something new, something that hasn't been seen before. Utilizing old or banal, contrived, if you will, templates, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but just kind of generic templates, phishing templates, the email body and contents, is good from just a generalized awareness stance, but it's not actually helping insofar as to here's the actual threats. Now, I'll guarantee you, your security operations team, if you have any type of reporter button or submit abuse box for your emails, your SecOps team has actual phishing emails that your organization has received. Ask them, grab some of those copies, create a mock-up similar to that. Now, actually simulate phish your employees with something that has already been received recently, so that way you're staying ahead of that curve. And that's especially going to be important as this whole AI, ML, usage enhances, especially from the attacker endpoint, because they're going to evolve faster and faster. They're going to change these up faster and faster. I see attackers all the time. They'll actually send huge campaigns just to see if something works. Then you'll never see it again until like 3 months later when they realize that one worked, we're going to try it again. So they're actually now getting into this rinse and repeat cadence, but getting enough space in between it so it seems unique unless you actually have that threat intelligence timeline of things. Here's an example, and obviously I'm not a salesperson, but this is something that's actually Cofense recently released within our phishing simulation product, PhishMe. And it's obviously called our Employee Engagement Index. Now, what this does is at an employee level, by way of context of this talk here, it actually tracks simulation data. Did you open the email? Did you click the link on the email or open the attachment in the email? Did you report the email? If you clicked on the link in the resulting web page, did you enter any data in the resulting web page? So the context of that is a credential phishing email usually has a link, you click on it and it goes to a fake login page. We don't obviously capture any of the login information, so we don't know what data was entered. But in context, if somebody opened an email, clicked the link, went to the web page and entered in data, it's a good approximation from a risk quantification stance that they entered in their username and password. Now you take all of that and you perform it, basically you get an engagement index with them. And this also includes, what security training did they have, and we're looking at incorporating various other metrics insofar as integrating with SOC teams, integrating this into platform like Living Security's Unify, HRMs, so that way you can use this as an enrichment source. So now you know. And it takes each of those individual data elements, not totality of, but individually. So that way you can actually customize what is risky for your organization. Again, going back to tailoring the metrics to your risk profile, your organization's risk profile, which is important. It's exceedingly important. Evolve engagement. Remember, as much as sometimes we grit our teeth and stop talking because we're afraid of what we're going to say, employees are a part of our solution. We need to help them help us. Everybody's different. I know you all probably are aware of this, but diversify training modes and methods. Small vignettes I found are much easier to digest than a 2-hour training spree that has to be done, or long video segments. Little half an hour here, half an hour there on specific topics, or very, on here's an update to certain threats that are occurring. Delivery of audio versus video, or text and video, different levels of engagement, mobile versus laptop. Sometimes it's easier for people to just kind of have it while they're sitting on a couch or something after hours, however works for your organization. Actively engage with your organization, with your employee base, and communicate the threats and the risks. If you have a monthly newsletter, if you have some type of quarterly notice that you put out to all your employees, talk about what your organization has seen. Don't hide it, right? And it's not so much hiding it, but shine some light on it. A lot of employees think what we talk about is contrived. We're making it up because we like our paychecks. I mean, don't get me wrong, we do like our paychecks, but we're definitely not making it up. So show them, here's a phishing email that actually got through. Luckily, we were able to mitigate it. Or show the good and the bad. Here's a phishing email that came through. 100 people were affected. It took us this long to detect it. Now we know, we're letting everybody know so they can be identified for these different new types of threats and templates. And we found a lot of value in gamification, and just recognition. If somebody reported an email to your security ops team and it was ultimately identified and you were able to, quarantine and protect, say, 100 emails, put that in the newsletter. Thank the person. Give them a $50 gift certificate to Amazon, something like that. Those little things go a long way. You'd be surprised. I mean, because right now it's really all about expectation management and just, again, getting everybody on board and relaying to them, showing them that they're part of our solution. They're helping and they are making a difference. Bring it all together. First line always gets people. Either have a plan or start small. Now, the reason I say that is because sometimes you go into this having a plan, but you just don't know the data. You just don't know some of the steps. Absolutely follow your plan. If you don't know where to start small. Don't throw everything in all at once. because you'll waste a couple of months and still kind of be back and forth. Start small, measure, quantify, validate, and validate it again. What works? I'm talking about data of value. So what threat intelligence is of value? Is it knowing here's the actual phishing emails that are being seen within your region around the globe for your industry, or even that has been known to bypass or not get detected by your current email security stack? That's knowledge. Here's specific threat types, threat actors. That's knowledge. That's useful. Here's actual templates and themes that you could expect based on, again, that phishing almanac style. That's important as well. So it all goes back to your organization. Communicate, and I repeat this because repetition is the key to remembering. Communicate actual threats. Train on actual threats, relevant threats. A couple of companies that I worked for that they were using the same phishing template for like 6 years. It's a completely different scene now. And it was then too, and where you can, like I said, gamify things, leaderboards, whether it's individuals, whether it's departments, why not both, whether it's different teams, different regions, different offices, things along those lines. Again, it goes a huge way. And the more you engage with people, the more internal intelligence you get back from them. That being said, I think we're right around the mark where we want to address any questions that may have come up, and I'm more than happy to answer anything I can.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for the really insightful discussion, Josh. Yeah, I have a couple. You mentioned being a data scientist and data geek myself. You mentioned the recent boom in kind of Gen AI and LLMs has led to a lot of adaptation in the phishing space and more sophisticated email and phishing template or email and phishing attacks.
Mhm.
Uh, do you see phishing simulation tools as almost needing to leverage these technologies to be effective going forward if Gen AI continues to be a way for attackers to adapt?
Yes and no. So threat actors are using ML and AI, not just Gen ML and AI. Just quick point, then I'll address directly. Imagine there was a data breach, and unfortunately, your organization was a part of it, right? A lot of times these ransomware, we'll say just arbitrarily. A lot of times these ransomware actors will then just publish out data, right? Which we've seen. Now the threat actors are going to take this data, and we'll say because this has already happened. Obviously, I'm not saying names or anything, but it's already happened. You can find it in popular media. Where they dumped 20,000, 50,000 emails. The threat actors now are taking those emails, digesting them into some type of large language model, LLM. So now what does that give them? Now they have the ability of creating templates that are using your company's vernacular, team designations, organization terms, and crafting emails that are in similar construction. How are we going to? It's hard to detect that from an ML AI stance because it looks like corporate business. That's why security awareness and training, actually using some of those types of templates, somebody's mimicking an internal employee as your phishing sim, helps better recognition or highlights those types of facets. The other part of it from the they are going to keep evolving. They are going to keep changing. But the reality is they go through iterative changes, and we know that these changes are going to occur. Phishing simulations, if we were to generate our own ML AI phishing simulations out of the blue, there's no telling that they would actually marry to what the attackers are doing. However, that's where it goes back to that threat intelligence. If you had a corpus of emails, like, again, I mentioned on our defense center side or the phishing defense center within Cofense, we process tens of thousands of emails every single day. We have a corpus of known human vetted malicious emails. If we fed that into a model daily, and then we use that to generate phishing templates for security awareness training for phish simulations, that would have more relevancy. But I would advise trying to get ahead of the ML that the attackers are using because you have no idea the path they're going to go versus that real-time relevancy on the threats and the actual tactics that they are using that we've seen within a small period of time.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I think maybe time for one last question. Um, is it possible to estimate how much real phishing is going unnoticed? I know it's kind of a unknown unknown, but
Well, obviously, I don't know what I don't know. What I can say, within our managed services, I mean, we have, like I said, tens of thousands of emails a day, hundreds of customers going, within our services. The average that I've seen for an organization that this is just reported email, so it's not even in the entire email stack. This is just literally somebody hitting the report button and sending the email to my teams. The average is between 9 and 15% of what's reported is malicious. So you can extrapolate that out. So if one organization reports in 20,000 emails, 9 to 15%, and that's a range. Usually it's larger believe it or not, it's like the larger organizations have a larger percentage. The smaller organizations have a larger percentage. The middle guys are usually in the middle. But so if like I said, if you take a
interesting.
20,000 employee company, say we'll arbitrarily say 10%, that's 2,000 emails that
Yeah.
came through that we're aware of that are
Yeah,
malicious.
interesting. I definitely would have taken the over on that on those being true positives. So
But
very
again,
very interesting.
what I will caveat is the organizations that have a much larger engagement with the employee, where when they report something, we send them back, this is clean, this is bad, and they have a stronger or more relevant security awareness training and phish sim program, those percentages of militia being reported are the higher ones. So there is a direct
Great,
correlation to a strong
great
program.
correlation. Yeah, cool. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up. We got about 20 more seconds or so, and they're probably going to pull us into the main webinar. So thanks again for your talk. Really insightful. Really enjoyed listening to it.
Yeah, same. I appreciate everybody's time. I hope it was useful. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or, yeah, well, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn if anybody has any questions that I can help with, or check out the Cofense website for a lot more information that's freely available on these topics.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.